Greetings, Legunus. Arendelft here. Now, I decided that there was a little bit more investigation to be done on this particular campaign intro trailer. And one of the first things I did was go and look up, exactly, concept of fortress monastery. And, found out, it's kind of a broad term that can cover a variety of things. But the one thing that it is known to be is the headquarters for a chapter of the Adeptus Astartes. As such, when the Inquisitor here refers to that ship as, a fortress monastery, that doesn't say what kind of ship that it is. So that's one thing to be remembered there. While we know it's a huge freaking ship, and to be a fortress monastery it would have to be, we don't know exactly of what kind it is. And goodness knows, there are some huge freaking ships out there. Anyways, one of the things I was doing, though, is, at first it didn't click in my head that this was going to be an Adeptus Astartes vessel. Then I saw that one particular body. Then I read that, Fortress Monastery means that it's going to be Adeptus Astartes. But then I really started reviewing this trailer. And just look around in this initial picture here, especially in sort of the middle to the left. There's a craft there, dead, of course. But let's take a slightly closer shot. And it takes on the likeness of a very trashed Thunderbird. And as, a very, very dead Thunderbird, I'm looking at side profile here, missing, of course, several engines, at least the wing on the left side. And it, when I really started to click in my head that, that was a fortress monastery for the Adeptus Astartes, I started taking at this, these wreckage in a different light, and realize there's definitely a lot more here than readily met the eye. I mean, even this thing right here on the left side of the picture, this thing right there, it looks like, the frontal section of a Thunderhawk. It's kind of difficult to readily tell, but as you are watching it pass, just look at that shot. Just look at it. That just right there looks like the cockpit of a Thunderhawk. Considering how old this Fortress Monastery might be, it could technically also be a Stormbird. I'm not nearly as familiar with that variant as I am the Thunderhawk, but I'm more inclined to believe that this is a Thunderhawk due to recognizing the frontal pattern there. But then we go a little bit further in, and even I don't see any wreckage here that says what the enemy might have been that laid such hurt on the Adeptus Astartes here. But there in the right corner there, you see another craft that looks like a more intact ship that's missing part of its left wing, but still has a leftward engine there. From the profile, that could either be a Thunderhawk, or it could be a Stormbird. I'm just not seeing enough of it to really be able to tell. But even as we close in, you can see more distinctly, that it is indeed, a vessel of some kind. But this was either Astartes versus Astartes action, or they did such damage to their enemy that the wreckage of whatever's left was indiscernible. But one thing to remember here, when he's talking about this,
it is authentic, but extremely old. The signal is coming from a battered fortress monastery that was likely spat from the war when the tide of the surges swept through the sector.
So that's something to be notated right there as well, that he theorizes that this battle did not take place in this solar system, but, that is just a theory. It's inconclusive. He doesn't know for sure. And the possibility that this battle could also be waged across the planets in this solar system, he did refer to them as desolate, but I assume he didn't do planetary surveys on each one. could be indicative that this battle may have happened here. It's not factual that this wreckage was just spat out here. But it would sort of make sense if it was spat out here, why we don't see many other craft here explaining what the Astartes were fighting.
There is no response to our hailing signals.
Now, I do not readily see any heraldry on the outside of this fortress monastery. But what gets me is that he knew it was a fortress monastery. That is a very specific term, which means most likely he has some sort of actual evidence to back up that particular theory or actual knowledge. In other words, he himself may have seen some heraldry to be indicative of that, because in truth, unless this ship is so huge that it could only be a fortress monastery, that it couldn't possibly be anything but the headquarters of whatever chapter it heralded from, that unless he has some sort of proof or evidence, that would be just purely conjecture on his part, that it could be just some battle barge or whatever belonging to the chapter and not its fortress monastery. So I don't think an Inquisitor would jump to that kind of conclusion unless he actually had solid evidence. Now, I myself do not have early access to the game right now or anything like that, so I do not know any of this for sure, and I currently do not have the money to, buy into early access currently. But I am now eagerly awaiting the chance to do so, however far off that may end up being. Because this right here, this looks awesome. Now, I do know that the style of the game itself is not going to be Spaceborne or anything like that. It's going to be actually inside of the ship. But the sheer lore that's coming up, that's bubbling up to the surface just from this, has just got me hooked. So, that in and of itself, plus the level of realism, is seriously just like...
Inquisitor, this is your captain speaking. I'm still trying to hail the monastery, but I get no response.
The hull looks intact, though. I think it was simply abandoned a very long time ago.
Okay, two things. One, she, the captain, referred to it as a monastery as well, meaning that she either has just accepted that the Inquisitor somehow knows this out of hand, or that she herself has as well seen evidence giving her this conclusion as well. And he notated the hull was intact, and that he believes that it was just abandoned. Astartes do not lightly abandon anything. So the mere concept of that is like, well, even anybody. Why would you abandon a craft if it was, usable? Especially if it was your fortress monastery. If it was that big of a key asset. So either there's something incredibly wrong with this ship on the inside, and we know that there is. There's, from other trailers I've watched, I see like the Inquisitor fighting, chaos crap. So we know there's a chaos infestation on this ship. But it's extremely unlikely that the Astartes would have abandoned it unless there was a really, really good reason. And even then, there are many chapters of Astartes which will never, ever retreat. Literally. They'll never, ever back down. They will fight to the last. So it possibly could have been one of those as well. But then again, there are a lot of chapters which are also extremely frugal with what they have. However, one that has a ship as its fortress monastery, frugal, I'm not sure if that's the right word. Anyway, one that has a ship as its fortress monastery is far less likely to just abandon ships and whatnot. Like the Ultramarines, oh yeah, they've got all kinds of ships, just, well, maybe not necessarily ships, but hardware and whatnot at their disposal, and abandoning certain things as, not being worth their time to go back and get due to risk involved and other things would be less definitive, as in a chapter which is spaceborne, which has an actual ship for its fortress monastery, and abandoning said ship would be a huge blow to the chapter. So, anyways, you get what I'm saying. So, the fact that he comes to that particular conclusion so lightly is also indicative that he knows more than what he's talking about, and that he may have just fed her some sort of, answer or whatever, just to keep her off his back.
Then what do you expect to find over there?
Something that once belonged to the Inquisition.
Okay, this is where we start to see, the bodies of the Astartes. And what's more is we see them outside of some hangar doors, and some of them look relatively intact.
And lots of empty holes.
Okay, there's the first thing that looks vaguely like a body. Yeah, vaguely.
Sounds exciting.
Okay, and then in the left corner there, next to the arm, well, more like middle of the screen, but anyway, you start to see these bodies flow by that do actually look like Space Marines. Now, on this particular arm that we see here, there's a hint that there's heraldry on it, just can't see what it is. And that's just like bugging me so bad. I want to see what it is. That's just gonna bug me, but anyways. So that is without a doubt a Space Marine right there in the center. You can see the power pack mounted to his back and the very thick profile. Yeah, that's obviously a Space Marine. So,
Your pilots to land on the hangar deck.
Stand by and wait for my signal.
Okay, now you see the doors opening themselves, which means this ship still has power. It's responding to external commands. Another thing to notate is, well, inquisitorial codes do open up a lot of doors, and I don't mean just literal doors, I also mean figurative or metaphorical doors. The Astartes themselves were not ones who submitted to the Inquisition's authority nearly as readily as the rest of the galaxy. So his codes being able to open up a main hangar's doors like this is either indicative, in my mind, of one of two things. The first one being is that this was either a chapter which actually did respect the Inquisition and readily allowed them aboard, which would also go along with the concept that there are, is something indeed inquisitorial aboard this battle barge. That's the reason why there's an inquisitorial distress code, that kind of thing. Or that these security features on this battle barge are just extremely outdated, that he, had long since had the codes for, something like this, that is this old, something along those lines. It could honestly go either way in that case. But I am leaning a little bit towards the first one, because the Imperium did not advance very far when it came to technology, including, security advancements and whatnot. It didn't exactly, continue to make strides in these areas. It was proceeding at a snail's pace. As such, it's much more likely in my mind that it's either a third possibility I haven't thought of, or that this particular chapter was extremely friendly, well, I suppose extremely might be a bit of an exaggeration, but was friendly towards the Inquisition and would have allowed their codes to be able to open up a main hangar door like this on their primary fortress monastery. In all, I am very stoked to get this game. When I do have the money, I am definitely going to get it and just friggin' explore and figure stuff out. I am just like, yes! Anyway. If anybody has any feedback whatsoever on anything I just covered, please leave it down in the comment section below. Would love to hear from you. just delving into this one little tidbit. I'm hoping that they have more sequences that are as in depth just like this one is. And I definitely hope to figure out what chapter / legion this fortress monastery came from, how the Inquisitor knows that it's a fortress monastery, or if that was just something he was making up, or conjecture on his part, whatever, etc. I hope to get answers to all the questions I've asked. In any case, if y'all like this video, please consider giving it a like down below. It definitely does help the channel. If you dislike this video, please let me know why. And if you have any other feedback or whatnot, please leave it down in the comment section below. And if you're new to the channel and genuinely enjoy this kind of content, please consider subscribing. In any case, don't give me too much trouble or do. It's always up to you. Toodles!